Welcome to a special edition of Reaching Out. The noise in the background you hear is Zuccotti Park and the Wall Street occupiers. In the background we have members from Local 237 staff, and we also have with us Jason Ahmadi, who has been here almost from the inception, and we're going to let him tell you his story. Jason?
I have been here from day one, and I was one of the initial organizers of this event, and I came from California to be part of the War Resisters League, and then became part of this beautiful occupation, and it's been a growing movement, and it's an honor to sit here with you, and it's really amazing to be here.
Thank you. It's an honor to sit here with you also. Tell me, how did this movement get started? What inspired you? What led you to come here, and what made you pick this location?
Well, the initial call was made by an Adbusters magazine saying September 17th, Occupy Wall Street, and some folks decided to pick that up, and we organized general assemblies to plan September 17th, and our idea was to have a public democratic assembly and a rally on September 17th. We had a number of different locations. Our first location, Chase Manhattan Plaza, was blocked off on the 17th, and it still is today. So we chose this as our second location. And our plan was to just have a democratic assembly where people will discuss the problem, discuss visions for the solutions, and decide what to do then. And they decided at that first day, Saturday, September 17th, to occupy this park, to create a democratic discussion and a debate and the ability for people to mobilize around the crisis, around their discontent, and as the 99%. And here we are in week 6.
Now, what would you like to see accomplished out of this movement? If there was some social changes to our society, what would you like to see?
Well, we as I said before, we represent the 99%.
Yes.
And what we feel is that a very small portion control the majority of our institutions, whether it be our economy, our government, our public education, our health care, our media. We would like to see those taken away from the hands of a very small few and brought back into the control of the people. Thank you so much for being here, and I encourage all people watching in this to mobilize on the streets, get with the people, and contribute to this movement.
And you want to invite them down to participate?
Come to. We're calling it Liberty Square.
Liberty
it used to be
Square,
called.
that's right.
Come to Liberty Square. Come to the
Square.
Occupy in your town. Start one up if there isn't one, and let's build this movement together.
Thank you, Jason, and we'll be back with more of the special edition of Reaching Out. Floyd, how are you?
Greg, nice to meet you.
We want to know about the food operation.
Absolutely. So this kitchen's been up and running for 5 weeks now. During the week, we serve about 2,000 meals a day. During the weekends, that spikes up, especially in good weather. We're serving 3,000 to 4,000 meals a day. Anybody who walks into this park gets fed. We've been receiving donations from all around the country and all around the world. Money's been pouring in, canned goods have been pouring in, hot food's been pouring in, pizzas, lots of pizza, we eat a lot of pizza here. We have about 30 to 40 people in this camp who rotate to work in this kitchen. My good friend Dan is one of them. And we just hope we can keep going strong. We hope we can keep sending the message that everybody deserves healthy food. Thanks.
Welcome back to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President of Teamsters Local 237. I'm now being joined by our public advocate, Bill de Blasio. Bill, welcome.
Greg, thank you, and thank you for doing your show here in such an important place for our city and our nation right now.
Our last guest, Jason Ahmadi, informed us that this is not Zuccotti Park anymore. This has now been named Liberty Square.
You know, it's amazing what impact this is having all over the world. And I think a lot of us, I'm one of the folks who didn't understand at first how this would play out, and it's absolutely extraordinary. The people who did this here have really reopened a debate about income disparity, about what the role of government should be in bringing equity to this country. And it's important, and I think really our political situation is going to be profoundly changed by it.
Now, Rachel Maddow played a clip from our former president, Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And Dwight Eisenhower, the Republican president who built our interstate highways, said that the nation was better when it was unionized. And he's a Republican, he was a Republican president, and he understood that in the 1950s we had a high density of unionized households and workers, and we had a booming economy. So people don't understand the roles that unions plays in this country compared to economic justice.
You're exactly right, and again, I think the people understand it better than the media, but the debate certainly doesn't reflect it. You've seen the bumper stickers, you know, the labor movement, the people who brought you the middle class.
Yes.
That's just plain true. And I always say, think of the last 100 years of American history. Labor was such a positive and progressive force in terms of living standards, safety, civil rights, etc. And I think it's becoming clearer again that the role of labor is profound. Eisenhower, you know, said that, understood that, and that was part of how America moved forward. Eisenhower warned against the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of things he said that was quite enlightened,
yes.
right? And it didn't matter what his party label was. He was enlightened about the course of the nation. But I hope we come back to that now. I hope the things we've been through now say to people, look, if we don't have a middle class, it's all over. Labor brought us to middle class. Labor helps to guarantee the stability and hopefully the growth again of the middle class. Let's accept and realize that we need that in this country and work with the labor movement. You've heard some saber rattling by the mayor about trying to shut down this protest, and then other times he talks about his devotion to the First Amendment. I mean, let's get clear. The city of New York has to get it straight. This is about protecting people's rights, about acknowledging how important it is. This movement has been extraordinarily peaceful, over 6 weeks now. And by the way, the police, with very few exceptions, have also managed to keep a very peaceful relationship with the movement. So my view is this is a case where freedom of expression and public safety go together. There hasn't been a contradiction between those two realities, and we need to respect that. The only problem is if the mayor thinks he can push a button and suddenly end this hugely important protest. That's where the problem would emerge.
I think things will get worse.
He's got to realize it would get much worse.
Yes.
And so he's got to realize that this is something that deserves its opportunity to get the message out, and the best way to do that is to respect this movement, respect how peaceful it's been.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Our guest was Bill de Blasio, public advocate.
Thanks
you very
much, Greg.
Okay.
I'm a tool and die maker, and that's an industrial job. There are not many of those left. I guess I'm the last of the Mohegans here. I'm here because I've done this all my life, you know, and I'm so happy to see young people finally taking over what's fight against injustice in our society.
So we at the info booth coordinate with the Internet Working Group, who puts all of the events, all the different meetings up on the online calendar, and then we take that information and copy it down onto this schedule here. Different working groups that meet, you know, regularly a few times a week in various places.
Okay.
And so all of that information is right here just for today. Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie.
You're welcome.
Okay. Welcome back to our last segment of Reaching Out. Our very special guest is Julie Menin, chair of the Community Board #1. We are actually in her Community Board district, and you wrote an editorial that we want you to talk about, supporting the Wall Street occupiers, also laying the ground rules for their occupation of this park, because you're now considering the Wall Street occupiers your neighbors, and you gave them the good neighbor policy.
Yes, well, first of all, Greg, thanks so much for having me on this show today. So a community board won last night. We voted 33-3 in favor of a resolution that absolutely fundamentally supports the American democratic right to protest and the support for Occupy Wall Street's right to protest, and also saying at the same time we can proactively address quality of life concerns. About a week and a half ago, with Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer, the community board negotiated a good neighbor policy with Occupy Wall Street to proactively address some of the concerns that we heard from residents and small businesses in the area. They're not mutually exclusive, and so I'm very proud of the action our board took last night to firmly uphold the right to protest.
You have more people here in this park now than ever before, and they are actually sleeping here. You talk about Occupy Wall Street, they're actually living in this park for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a really interesting history that we have here in Lower Manhattan. We're obviously the nation's first capital, and we've had a long history of protests. Years and years ago, every time there was a major financial crash, thousands of people would actually protest in front of the New York Stock Exchange. That's our history. Here in Lower Manhattan, we're proud of the fact that we are able to witness firsthand protests, whether they be at City Hall, peaceful protests that exercise a fundamental American right to be able to speak your mind.
This was has been a special edition of Reaching Out with Gregory Floyd. My guests earlier, Jason Ahmadi, Bill de Blasio, public advocate. Jason is one of the original Wall Street occupiers, and I have very special guest and friend, Julie Menin, chair of Community Board 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.